High-tech supersuits for police officers had a feature that was exploited by a supervillain. This is for entertainment purposes only. This short story is only for people over the age of 18.
Awaiting orders.
The redhead said as she stood at attention in her high-tech suit. She then started walking through the walls of the police precinct. This caused lots of structural damage, and she literally walked over people, seriously hurting them in the process. She used the enhanced strength the suit gave her to rip apart the bars of the holding cell, but only because it was in the way. One criminal that decided not to run away said,
"That lady was crazy. Her face was already bleeding from all that stuff hitting her cheeks and stuff. It was her eyes, glassy and blank like something out of a movie. I didn't want to follow her in case it was something contagious."
It was worse than that. To combat the growing threat of supervillains, the government subcontracted out that each police department would get their own Mendy supersuit, one male and one female, that anyone could wear if they were the right size. The suits gave flight, super strength, firepower, and looked good doing so. Typically, the departments would put their most attractive officers in the Mendy suits, for optic. This worked for about a month. A smarter-than-average villain named Inducement, real name Sirius McDermott, figured out the suits had to be mentally controlled. It would mean that the human mind had to not only send out commands but receive them too. If the brain receives commands, then it could be controlled. So, Inducement didn't need to create an army using his power of inducing emotions. He could have a superpowered army, if he controlled just one person. The subcontractor for the Mendy suits, fearing an officer of going rogue and killing lots of people, installed a mental override program in the suit. Inducement was correct, and that's why the villain went to the computer hub for the Mendy suits, used his powers to induce a desire for obedience on the man on duty of monitoring the Mendy suits. This man turned on the mental override program, and thus he took control of everyone wearing a Mendy suit. All over the country the people wearing the Mendy suits lost their free will and became robotic like slaves awaiting orders. An example was witnessed at the beginning of this article. Things didn't get any better when the natural heroes showed up. The natural heroes did the only thing they know how to do, hit things really hard. The people being controlled by the Mendy suits retaliated. There were horrible deaths on both sides. This happened before smarter people shut down the computers controlling the Mendy suit. With the Mendy suits down, the people being mind-controlled did not have their minds turned back on. On top of the numerous deaths of uniformed police officers, officers in the Mendy suits, and unfortunate natural heroes, it was found the mental override program had lasting effects since the mental override was not shut off in its proper sequence. Each officer pulled from the now dead Mendy suits would obey any command given to them by anyone. Nothing good resulted from the events that were eventually called the Mendy takeover. The villain Inducement got at least a dozen men and women in Mendy suits to follow and obey him. The villain and his slaves disappeared to parts unknown. With the Mendy suits down, and some natural heroes out of the game, other supervillains took advantage of the situation and rose up to try and do whatever nefarious deeds they wanted. The men and women that had been in the Mendy suits when they were shut off remained in their blank and obedient states, obeying any command given to them, for at least 3 years at the time of this writing. Some officers were entrusted to spouses, some to parents, and others to government-appointed guardians. This resulted in many, now former, officers being in sexual relationships with their guardians that the obedient officers may or may not have consented to. At the time of this writing, there are no plans to restart the Mendy suit program. The government-contracted company that made the Mendy suits has filed for bankruptcy protection. The villain Inducement has not been seen since he left with his small squad of Mendy slaves. Laws are still being written, 3 years later, to stop another Mendy takeover from ever happening again.
The end. This was a work of fiction. Any similarity between people, living or dead, is purely coincidence. This scenario did not, or should not, have happened in real life. Thank you for listening.